Hello everybody and welcome back to another Doctor Who product review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at one of the latest releases as a part of the B&M Exclusive 2021 Doctor Who range. In today's review, History of the Daleks Set 6, featuring Daleks from the second Doctor story, The Evil of the Daleks, including a drone and an Emperor Dalek guard. The recommended retail price for this collector set is £19.99. And this set does of course also mark the end of 60s Doctor Who being represented within this series. So firstly, taking a look at the packaging for History of the Daleks Set 6, let's face it, we are all used to this style by this point and therefore nothing really has changed. At the bottom we have the title of the set along with the usual B&M Exclusive limited edition sticker, and this set is of course from the second Doctor serial Evil of the Daleks, which did of course initially air in 1967. On one side you do of course also have an additional TARDIS graphic, the title once again printed at the side, as well as usual company information at the bottom. Finally, flipping around to the back of the box, I do love how these have changed over the years. With the initial B&M sets we had absolutely zero text whatsoever, and now we basically have the contents of an entire book with a story synopsis, as well as a few details about the actual props themselves, delving into the behind the scenes. Once more, I really do love the attention to detail with the packaging for these collector sets, with each set having its own serial-specific, unique backdrop. In the case of this set, we have the Emperor Dalek himself. Of course, this does act as an excellent display option if you have space. Here we have the two Daleks out of the box. So to start off with, we have a regular Dalek drone from the story, and then we also have an Emperor Guard Dalek, which has been previously released on 2 occasions before, technically 3, being both releases of the Dalek Collector Set 2, and then we also had the 50th anniversary Toys R Us exclusive Dalek and Second Doctor 2-pack. So this set does of course mark the end of 60s Doctor Who as a part of the History of the Daleks series. I must admit, as much as I do love the silver and blue design, I'm happy to see this era over with because we've seen lots of Daleks so far and I am getting a little bit tired by this point. It's interesting because I imagine that not many people are going to be purchasing this collector set because they are a super fan of Evil of the Daleks and desperately want this one to add to their shelf. I think the vast majority of people who are going to be purchasing this are purchasing it for completist reasons, mainly because it came out as a part of the range. It's kind of just instinct to pick them up by this point. I certainly fall within that category. I didn't even consider if I wanted this set or not. I simply purchased it because it's a part of the series and I've got all of the others already, because there's not really too much about this set that actually makes it unique and special. So firstly, let's take a look at the drone Dalek. Arguably this is the selling point of the set, I suppose, because I don't think that we've ever seen a drone Dalek from Evil of the Daleks, and as a result I suppose it's a new one for the shelf if you were going to be very petty. But that doesn't hide the fact that this looks very, very similar to the Daleks that we've seen already many times before. So much like the other 60s Daleks released as a part of the History of the Daleks series, we have this really lovely shiny metallic paint application, so really make this Dalek pop compared to some of the previous 60s Daleks that we've seen, in particular released as a part of the Forbidden Planet series. Overall for paint application it does seem considerably sharp, I can't see too much paint leak, and to be honest the changes which have been made very, very minimal and are only really obvious once you compare it to some of the previous variants. Regardless of the fact that we've seen this sculpt so many times before, it still doesn't hide the fact that it is excellent. The slats are lovely, a great design, we even have the rivets there on each panel, as well as the mesh texturing in between. I'm going to go out on a whim and say that this midsection underneath is probably an ever so slightly different shade of grey, because with these releases it usually is ever so slightly different. I can't compare directly because I'm not currently at Hosty HQ with the rest of my collection. The gun stick is exactly the same to usual, it's been painted silver with the standard banded design, and the same can be said for the manipulator arm as well, featuring the glossy black plunger. One thing that is really impressive for this Dalek is the paint application. Overall, on my Daleks in particular, it does seem to be considerably sharp. All of the paint is keeping within the lines, which is quite nice. Again, I'm going to go out on a whim and say that the blue used on these Daleks is probably an ever so slightly different shade compared to some of the other 60s Daleks, because we've seen quite a variation over the past few releases. Something that I am very happy to see make a return is the wash which has been applied to the fender. This gives the Dalek the overall appearance that this has been war-torn a bit, it's been pushed around the BBC studios. It brings it to life a bit more, it makes it feel less like a toy and more like a representation of the actual TV prop. This was originally used on the first History of the Daleks set, and from what I can recall it kind of phased out for a while, so I'm very happy to see it return on this set. The neck bin on both of the Daleks is exactly the same sculpt to always, a lovely mesh texturing around the entirety of the inner casing, and then we have the various discs in between. One thing that I will say is make sure that these lines do match up, especially if you're not a fan of taking your Daleks apart and rearranging it, because I did see a few in store that did seem to be a little bit messy and a bit staggered, so yes, make sure that these beams do line up. Something that does make this Dalek stand out to the other 60s Daleks is the inclusion of the black pupil, something of which that apparently hadn't appeared within 60s Doctor Who up until this point, so I suppose it does make it quite a unique 60s Dalek and kind of paving the way for pupils being used on Daleks in the pretty much entirety really of the rest of classic series Doctor Who. The Dalek does feature an ever so slight bit of paint bleed underneath the black main section, although to be honest it's not particularly too noticeable, and then we have the usual discs set around the eye stalk. These are the individually sculpted design, highlighted with a darker blue paint. We don't have any further black banding on this, unlike some of the previous 60s Daleks which have been released. Due to this being a second Doctor era Dalek, we have the inclusion of the egg-shaped dome lights. This time round we have a rather lovely transparent yellow design. Previously within this series we had the set for Power of the Daleks, the finish on the bulb was much more creamy. This time we kind of return to the roots of the series, being a vibrant transparent yellow. So in summary, for the regular drone Dalek, it's nice. It's a 60s silver and blue Dalek, and that is exactly what you get. If you want a little bit of an oddity to have a drone Dalek with a pupil, then this set is also most certainly for you. And I suppose that is the highlight of the History of the Daleks series. We are starting to see more obscure variants to put alongside the initial Forbidden Planet exclusive releases. So next up we have the Emperor Guard Dalek. Now for the most part this is exactly the same to the Dalek that we've just taken a look at, as well as bearing a very similar resemblance to the previous Emperor Guard Daleks that we've seen released in the character options range so far. So for the most part we have that lovely metallic sheen once again which has been used on the skirt and the midsection. The fender does also feature that lovely wash, and the manipulator arm and gun do also remain pretty much exactly the same. Can't compare it directly side by side due to me currently being at uni, however the midsection of the Dalek does spot the biggest change compared to the previous Emperor Guard Daleks released, in that the shade of grey which has been used on this midsection is now lighter compared to the darker seen on the original Dalek Collector Set 2 release. Of course, one of the benefits of seeing the Emperor Guard Dalek released again is I do believe there were in fact multiple within the story itself, so if you have a custom Emperor Dalek I suppose you could put them on either side, which will be quite cool. The main difference is of course the dome itself, which is now black as opposed to silver. Again, I can't compare this to the other Emperor Guard Daleks that I've got as a part of my collection, but generally overall the finish does seem to be a bit more of a smoother black as opposed to the glossy black seen on the previous releases, which I think certainly seems to look a bit better, especially when put alongside that very chrome shiny silver which has been used on the rest of the Dalek bodies. Yes, overall it most certainly looks the part, and I like the inclusion of the smaller iris as well, for the sake of variety. I always find that one of the most satisfying things with the 60s Daleks is that there is evidently a ranking system between them. You have the silver and blue ones, you have the all black ones, you have the black ones with just a black dome, and it's a nice system of hierarchy between these Daleks, and I think that is why I like the 60s Daleks so much. So I suppose if you're a fan of that too, then this set will be perfect for you, as it features two different hierarchies of Dalek. With that does of course conclude my review of History of the Daleks Set 6. What do I think? Is it worth it? It's kind of the remark that I mentioned at the very start of this review, where I feel like this set is merely for completion purposes. Both of the Daleks within this collector's set are not particularly too exciting, they don't feature any new sculpts or anything like that, and it is a paint application that we have seen many times before. If you missed out on the original Emperor Guard Dalek as a part of the Forbidden Planet exclusive series or the Toy Toys R Us 50th anniversary range, then yes, this is a great opportunity to pick up that Dalek. However, if you are somebody who picks and chooses your Doctor Who action figure releases and already have the original version of the Emperor Guard Dalek, then this set is probably worth a miss because it's really not too exciting and is merely there to fill a hole on the shelf. Thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for regular Doctor Who content. Of course, on that note, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.